Call this meeting at 7 p.m. If you could all rise and say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so before we go into correspondence, I do want to welcome, we have a new appointed board member, Caroline Racine, so I just want to welcome her tonight. And correspondence.
We have none this evening, but I would also just share that Caroline was sworn in, so she's all set to be seated at the table this evening.
Perfect.
And welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Accommodations, good news. Caleb?
Yep, just one thing tonight. I just want to share our speech and debate team participates in the New Hampshire YMCA Youth in Government. And this year we had a really good track record. We had the youth governor of New Hampshire, the president of the Senate, Senate chaplain, a senator, and then also a representative. And Harrison might correct me. We had Chief Justice for the youth government. So we had a number of the top positions. Our students did really well, and we're proud of all of them. And also to Mr. McDermott and Mr. O'Brien, they are our advisors, and they also do an excellent job.
Perfect. Thank you, Caleb. Anyone else? All right. Seeing none. Open up to public comment. Do we have public comment tonight? Seeing none.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you do? I'm sorry. Go ahead. So you just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. I'm Kimberly Peace. My address is 201 Goffstown Back Road. I am the vice chair of the planning board, but I speak tonight as a citizen and mom of two students who have been through or are still going through Goffstown schools. And I just wanted to speak in support of the use of the funding that is being discussed for the turf and the field lights. So my daughter played soccer, and I have been to a lot of soccer games. As it gets later in the year, it's nice to have, or it would be nice to have lights instead of having games or practices that end early. And I also think it's just a fun idea to have a Friday night game under the lights instead of the football games in the afternoons. I think the school would really benefit from having that use of funds in the school, and I think that it would really, it's not just for the athletes and the students who play those sports, but I think it just sort of gives an overall school spirit opportunity for us to continue to use the fields, amongst the school students. So I know that is something that is being discussed, and I would be really in support of that. And thank you for the decision, or I don't know if it's finalized, but the improvements to the theater. That is a long time coming, and my daughter is a member of the theater group and has done several productions, and I have sat in those uncomfortable chairs and seen the challenges to the lighting and the curtains, and I'm definitely excited to see that that's going to take place as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right. So I'll close public comment. We have a few sets of minutes to approve. 2 public hearings, I figure we'll do as one, and then the meeting. So we'll start with the public hearings first. Did anybody see anything? Read through them?
I'll move to approve them.
All right, so you approve both public hearings?
Were they both for the same date, the 4th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a motion by Ellen. Do I have a second? By Shane. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, so now the next is the actual meeting on the same day, April 4th.
Move to approve.
By Ellen. Do I have a second? Oh, Shane, Jared, did you have a question?
Just question or correction. I'm looking
Sure.
at the session minutes that were approved. They're all saying 8-0. I don't believe Terry was here for that, and I don't know if they should read 7-0 like the rest of the meeting minutes.
Where was that?
So if you look on the second page, at the very top, February 4th deliberative session, nothing, of course, was passed. Approval of March 21st minutes.
Yes.
It says 8-0 or 6-0-2. I believe there's only 7 of us that were present at the meeting.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Jared. Did you get that, Denise?
Yes, I did.
All right. Anything else? So I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, by Shane. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, We're unanimous. All right, so we have a couple presentations tonight. The first one is the Future Business Leaders of America are here to talk. So if you guys want to come on up to the microphones.
Good evening, school board. My name is Vincent Pang. I'm currently serving as the Goffstown High School Fbla chapter president alongside Bryn Van Gilder, my co-president. I have Ethan Hansen next to me. He's our school store manager. Sophia Perrin and Harrison Spaltoff, both of my great members as well. I'm here to talk to you about a few of our accomplishments this year, as well as a basic knowledge of what FBLA is. So just a quick introduction. FBLA stands for Future Business Leaders of America, and we are the largest business-oriented club in the entire nation, each year having over 230 members in high school and college that prepare all of its members for a career or even anything that has to do with business, including finance, hospitality management, basically the whole nine yards with that. FBLA has a mission to inspire and prepare students to become community-minded business leaders in a global society through technical career preparation and leadership experiences. Currently, the Goffstown High School chapter has 48 active members. With our advisor, Ms. Scarlett's assistance, we engage in several community project initiatives, which include attending leadership workshops, networking and learning from local business leaders, and we do all of this in order to compete in our keynote event every March. It's at the New Hampshire FBLA State Leadership Conference. We are very pleased to share this year that Goffstown FBLA did place first at this event, and we were not only recognized as a state champion, but we were also recognized with the Gold Seal chapter status.
All of the list of winnings didn't even fit on one page. When Ms. Scarlett sent it to me, it was multiple pages. I couldn't even list all of the names. You guys won so many things.
Great.
This year in the State's our 50th anniversary, so as a state officer working with the state, I got to see how everything unfolded for 50th year, and I'm just really glad that I had Goffstown with me to win this big thing that we have going on. Now I'd like to turn it over to Bryn Van Gilder, the co-president. She's going to go more in depth about the state projects that we facilitated this year.
Yeah, so in order to get our first place, each year FBLA officers create individual projects and ask each chapter to engage in their project. This year, DHS FBLA was given a first place award for engaging in all of the NH FBLA state officer projects. And these projects are the following: Healthy Hearts, which is heart disease recognition, which is actually Vincent's project that he completed. S Cubed, connecting with local businesses to network and work together. The Diversity Project, spreading the word about inclusion and embracing all cultures and races. Leadership Project, meeting with other state leaders to enhance each chapter. And finally, fleece blankets for the homeless. And our chapter made several fleece blankets for the homeless, which were donated to many shelters around the state. Yeah, now I'd like to turn it over to Harrison Spaltoff. Oh, is it going to be Ethan? Yeah. Perfect.
I would like to share the following to recognize the winners at this year's State Leadership Conference. Natalie Molina, Advertising, second place. Bryn Van Gilder and Michaela Stricklis, Web Design, second place. Sophia Perrin, Computer Problem Solving, first place. Kenna Pishu, Healthcare Administration, first place. Ava D. Mateus, Economics, third place. Jocelyn Ashford, Intro to FBLA, first place. Sophia Christianakis, Economics, second place. Logan Cody, Financial Math, first place. Harrison Spaltoff, Public Speaking, second place. Vincent Pang, Job Interview, first place with distinction. Carly Swansburg, Human Resource Management, second place. And Maddie Prue, Human Resource Management, third place. And then, Who's Who among High School Student Award, Vincent Pang and Bryn Van Gilder.
So those are just some of our great winners this year that we had individually within our chapter. Obviously, we all worked collectively in order to get you to the first place status. So super great individual accomplishments as well. I'm going to now turn it over to Harrison Spaltoff, who's going to talk a little bit about our financial literacy program that we have going on here.
Yeah, so every year, Goffstown High School, we get a team for this competition called the Finlit 300. Finlit 300's run by a company called Jumpstart 603, which is a 501c organization. that our advisor, Ms. Scarlett's actually a part of, sits on the board. And what they do is they pretty much promote financial literacy in the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire, they had a bill in the State House a couple years back to require either a business or a financial literacy class to graduate. That bill failed, so Jumpstart 603, they jumped in once when they realized that this is really important for high school students, and they created this competition. They pull kids all across the state, bunch of different schools. They bring them over to Concord, and they have the governor watch over this conference. Before you get to go to the Concord competition, you do this online placement thing. Goffstown, we had a bunch of members on in Fbla and in the personal finance classes compete, and we actually placed first in the placement conference. So that was awesome. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go to the in-person event because it was the day before SLC, but we were the first seed for the competition.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I believe that financial literacy is coming back as a graduation requirement. So there's a proposal right now to change the minimum standards that's going through the Joint Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, and I believe that's moving forward. So although that bill that you referenced, Harrison, it didn't move forward, I think the work still moves forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we really do appreciate the opportunity to speak amongst you folks tonight, and we really thank you for the opportunity to share our experiences and our accomplishments for this year. Can I answer any questions for you folks?
Anybody? Any questions?
I would just say thank you.
Yes.
We're very impressed. It was
Absolutely.
wonderful to get the annual notification of how well the chapter did. But you guys are a great group. We're so pleased to have you come and speak to us tonight, and we're all very impressed and super proud of you guys.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Yes.
Well done.
All right, so the next is Megan Bizzaro is going to give a update on the food service, and I think we have some stuff in our packets, correct? Yes, you should.
Mrs. Bizzaro, welcome.
Third page.
Hi, folks. You should have 2 pages, one with a lot of words, the other one with a lot of numbers. So it has, first, I just want to acknowledge the food service team that you have in your buildings. Over the last 2.5 years, they've been, without a doubt, amazing. They've made sure breakfast and lunch has happened every single day, no matter who had what or who was in or who was out and how many boxes we had or didn't have. They've truly been amazing, very positive group. They've been able to laugh through it all, so I am very lucky to be part of that group. So, with that said, the challenges for food service will continue next year. There was a lot of stuff working federally to try and extend our waivers, which would have addressed our staffing shortages, our supply chain issues, our free meals for families. Congress did not allow those waivers to continue. So we are at this point looking at going back to a pre-COVID program where we have parents filling out applications, kids having to have money on their accounts to have breakfast and lunch. Kind of feels like we're going backwards, to be quite honest with you, because we've been able to just feed kids, and it's been wonderful. That's been the really wonderful part. The supply chain issues, not so, but so we are looking at that situation. So part of tonight is to kind of brief you on what that might look like and how we're going to prepare our families for this. There is still a bill at the federal level to allow the waivers to come through. We're not sure. That's kind of a Hail Mary, but Hail Marys do sometimes work. So I'm hopeful, but realistic. So we are going to have a definite decrease in participation with going to when families have to pay for meals. We have had, if we looked at I looked at our pre-COVID numbers versus our numbers this year, Our lunches are up 275 meals a day, and breakfasts are up 235 meals a day. So whether or not we'll retain that, we won't retain all of those students because some of those families just won't be able to afford, buying breakfast and lunch, and also just miss the reduced price cutoff. So we will lose participants. We also will lose federal money. We currently are receiving, it's in the first paragraph here, $4.56 per every lunch. Doesn't matter what the income of the child, that's the amount we get. It's great. And $2.06 for breakfast. It's the highest reimbursement I've ever seen. In comparison to when I looked back to the 1920, school year 1920 reimbursement rates, lunch ranged from $3.37 for a student receiving free meals down to an additional 37 cents for a paid student. So you can see we're going to see a dramatic decrease in our federal dollars coming in. So we'll be leaning again on our local dollars, on our sales to our students through a la carte and meals, and hoping that our bidding works well so we don't see a huge food cost increase. One of the things we have to prepare our families for is when school starts. And you'll see here I have in May a proposed plan of starting to communicate to families about this change that's coming. Families have not been filling out free and reduced forms, as you know, because they truly didn't have to. And that's okay. But what happens is that if a family doesn't fill out one now, when school starts, if they fill out at one on the first day of school and it doesn't reach me until the 5th day of school, I cannot go backwards and retro to the first day of school if they qualify for free. That means that they may have incurred a bill that maybe they can't pay, and the only dollars we'll get towards that lunch will be roughly 37 cents for each day. So we want our families to fill out applications now so that on day one, because there is a grace period in the fall, they're okay. No one racks up a bill that they can't necessarily pay. And then we have 30 days to get them to do the new application for next year. So that's why it's so critical for us to get them for families to do this. And we'll be doing we'll put it out in the newsletters, social media, direct emails. This will go on until the end of school to try and help families to realize how important this is. We may, in May, there is what's called the Paid Lunch Equity Tool. It's put out by the USDA. It's I still don't fully understand it, but it has to do with trying to make sure that we're charging our paid students as much as we're receiving for our free meal reimbursement to try and get that to be equitable. And it talks about when you should raise prices or not. And districts usually we have to fill it out, but we don't have a new one from USDA, so I don't know if we're even going to have to do it. But I wanted to put that on our radar so I don't forget about it. But that will give us direction. But schools can also choose to do their own lunch increases or breakfast increases, should we choose to do that. The other thing I would like to bring up, and actually I'll come back to this one. The other thing that will happen in May is we will bring forward a recommendation for a new computer system for the food service. We have proposals coming in now. This is in the budget for next year. We have to replace it. There are some things with Steve Bourgette's pieces where he's saying that we really do need to replace it and see what's out on the market. And what's nice is that there's been some really nice improvements. And I think we'll be able to either come out a little ahead or even with what we're paying right now. So that'll be good. And I'd like to loop back to, at some point, and I'd like to kind of put the bug in your ear, I've talked with Scott about this, is that for the last 2.5 years, your meal program has been a nice safe haven for students. They come, they get lunch, they get breakfast, they go to class, or they stay in class and we bring it to them, or they'd pull up in their car and we give them food. We have a regulation, we've had it for a number of years. We started it when I first came on board, about a limit for charging meals, and if you hit the limit, then we need to give you an alternative meal. It's not perfect. It's probably the worst part of our job in food service, is when we're facing that, whether that student is 17 or 6, and anywhere in between. It's just not comfortable. With all the talk about social emotional pieces for students, I'd like to have some discussion, or ask you to think about possibly suspending that until, say, January, and we come back and we look at it in December and we try to figure out, does this work, does it not? Can we allow charging, and then try and figure out a way to help families more, whether it be, a person on my staff who works a little bit more to get on the phone to help families. I'm not really sure what it looks like, but it's something that I felt I needed to bring forward to you. And you may say, you know what, we still have to do this regulation, and that's fine too, but part of my job is to bring things to you to consider. But it's been, I have to say, it's been really nice. The staff has really been like, oh, good. I don't have to tell them they don't have any money. It's just not a great role to be in, and it's not a good role for students to have to worry about coming down and, am I going to get lunch? Am I going to get breakfast? And it's not that they didn't, it's just that they didn't get what their choice was, and then we had to throw something away. So, something for you to consider. It's nothing we have to decide tonight, obviously. The second page we will have to decide tonight. In June, we'll continue to do what we've done in May with communication. Probably I'll come back to see you, I'm sure, to talk about if we want to do a price increase, if you're recommending that. Our big grocery bid opens on June 7th. Our bid is huge this year. It's over 500 items. It's got some great new items. I'm really excited about them. Sorry, Caleb, are you a senior?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
All right.
But you might see a few of them this year. We might be able to get them in. So we're really excited about our bid. The bids, it covers close to 50 districts. We're probably up to about $11 million on the bid items alone. We've actually been fairly insulated from some price increases. I know we haven't been in the grocery store, but our vendor, PFG North Center, has been absolutely phenomenal, trying to source stuff for us that's in our, where we can find it. And they've been really, really good. Manufacturers have shrunk product lines. They've gone from like 20 to 10, because they've got to survive. And we get it, but right now we can't get cheese sticks. No one knows why. No one can figure out why we can't get them, but it's been for 3 weeks now. We couldn't get cereal for a while, and the reason why was the resin on to stick the label on our little cup. They couldn't get the resin. So it's weird things that are affecting our supply chain. So we're hoping the bid will open well, and we'll see some nice steady pricing with that. And that will help us with pricing as well. And then possibly in June, if you're so inclined to relook at that regulation EFR, we could have some more discussion about that. I also want to, you've probably heard, I think it was late this fall, the USDA announced there was $1.5 billion of supply chain funds coming down to schools. About $1 billion of it went to USDA and directly down to schools. And we, as an SAU, we are going to get $5,000 that will split between Goffstown and New Boston. Any additional monies that the state has will be based on our percentage of enrollment out of the total state's enrollment, and I have no idea what that is. So we have yet to see the dollars. We filled out the form, but we have yet to see the dollars. Those can only go for domestic, unprocessed food items. So we're talking about milk and produce, from what all of us can figure out. It could go for it could go for mozzarella cheese, it could go for tomato sauce, it could go for the flour, it could go for the yeast, it could go for the pepperoni. We've got pizza, but it can't go for a frozen pizza that's domestically made. So we're going to aim for milk and produce and keep it really easy, because I don't want to have to, there's just it's too complicated. And it is very auditable, and it would be pretty tough. There should also be some more money in commodities, because the other $500 million went to commodities for, but we have yet to even hear anything from the commodity office. And we've gotten far fewer commodities this year as well. For example, when we order canned fruit here at the high school, we'll get 25 cases or 30 cases at a time. We've been getting 5. So they've been pretty hit pretty hard with the supply chain as well. During the summer, as soon as I get that new meal application, which will probably be after July 1, we'll release that, we'll get it out there, we'll start pushing hard to get people to do it over the summer, and get it done, whether it be online or in paper, or come pick it up, whatever we can do to try and get families to get that application done. And then I also just put in here, because it's been a while since we charged anyone for lunch or breakfast, what we were charging in school year 1920 before we closed down. Breakfast was $1.50 at the high school, $1.25 at the middle and the elementaries, and then lunch was $3.25 at the high school, $3 and $2.75. Any questions about this front page, or thoughts about kind of what's happening in your program?
Yeah, oh, sorry, Brian, I didn't realize.
Yeah, Meg, so are we not at a point yet, because they haven't released what the reimbursement rates are for next year to set pricing?
No idea. No
Okay,
one
so we
knows.
still have to do that for next year?
We do. We can either just adopt what we had when we closed down, or we can do an increase. But we won't know. Boston, the Northeast Regional Office is telling our state office, no idea what the reimbursement rates are, because the waivers didn't get granted. No one in USDA really knows what they should be doing with reimbursement rates, how that's going to work.
So in the past, we've had to increase our rates as a function of being consistent with the reimbursement rate. Do we think that that's still the case?
I think that's probably going to come down, but it's going to be late. And what I have seen in an email that wasn't directly to me, but it was to a colleague from the state that said, we don't have a new, that paid lunch equity tool. We don't have a new one. We don't know when we're going to get one. So districts can do what they think is what they need to do at this point. Because if we wait too long, we can't wait past June.
Right.
Because we have printing and things that need to get done. And honestly, I think it won't be until the end of June before we see reimbursement rates, if not July.
So if we had to, we could always come back with an adjustment next year?
We could. I wouldn't recommend.
I'm not recommending it either, but
Yeah.
I don't want to increase the rates if we don't have to, particularly because people are not in the habit of paying. They haven't been doing this for a number of years, so I would be inclined to say keep the rate the same, but I don't want to hurt us moving forward.
Yeah. We are, I think every school is going to be in the same boat as we are. Everybody's going to do their level best because we do need to be sensitive to what's happening in the community. When we go to the grocery store and there's shortages there, or, there's a lot going on. And will we lose money next year? Probably. I'm not going to say we're going to sit here and we're going to rake in the bucks next year, because even when we were in pre-COVID, it was tight for our department. But, with this rate that we've been getting, the 456, 457, the government is actually saying that's what you should be getting. That's what you should be getting for a meal. Now, we can't go to that. I don't know anybody who charges $4 for a school lunch and has decent participation, unless it's a fairly affluent community could probably do that. But that's not how I understand how Goffstown works. I think we have to be sensitive, and I have to tell you, it was a real wake-up call when we saw people coming through and picking up, food bags, and people said, people were like, we've never had to do this before, but this is helping us. And even this year, we get emails from parents that say, I am so glad this is still free because my kids had a tough time. Now I can send them to dance class, and they've got an outlet. Before, I couldn't send them to dance class because I couldn't make that part stretch. So I think when we think about the pricing, and I know we're going to, we pay our staff, we have to pay our staff, and that's important. We have a senior staff, and that's great because they've gotten us through this whole thing. But next year is going to be really, really tough. This year, due to the reimbursement rate being where it is, and unfortunately being short-staffed, so we're not quite as staffed as what we normally would be, we're looking at having a good excess. So Scott and I have talked, and your second page is how can we spend some of that excess to get some much-needed equipment for our staff, so that we can continue to keep things moving forward. I think we can wait until the end of May easily, maybe even into the first meeting of June, because hopefully we'll have more information by then. But I don't think I would bet too much on that.
Yeah, what I'd like to recommend the board consider is, why don't we, Mr. Gross, will plan to bring this in early June. If we don't have any updates, then I would likely recommend continuing with the existing pricing. So we'll hold off on that for now then.
Yep, that's fine.
And also to discuss the EFR.
Yep.
Any other questions about this first page or concerns, or in general?
Looks good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks,
Second page is, the second page is our fun page. The staff is really excited about this second page. Because like I said, we've had such a nice increase in the reimbursement rate. We are in a very good financial standing this year, in part the reimbursement rate and the increased meals. That all adds up pretty quickly. We have some older equipment, and it's time to take advantage of the fact that we have some cash and replace them. So I'll walk this kind of through for you. Mountain View, we had a steamer there that died this late fall. So we would like to, we really do need to replace that and get a tilt skillet, because currently it's a steamer, and then I don't know if any of you have seen those big kettles. They're all actually one unit when they built them. One piggybacks off on the other. So what we want to do is make them two separate units, and actually a tilt skillet's kind of like a big griddle. And we're going to get much more use out of that than the big kettle that's basically like a little bath. Those two items I have bid pricing on, so you'll see that. My current head cook there, Mrs. Nault, said, "Ooh, do you think you could get us a milk cooler, it would really help us out with our backs. I said, I'll put it on the list. That's a reasonable request. I will tell you, the staff is they're very reasonable in their requests. They're not going to ask for anything that's, too silly, and quite honestly, they know I'm not going to let it happen. So, the high school, we did get a steamer here last year through a grant. It's just not worked out the way we thought it would, to be very honest with you. We thought it would be better than it is. It's just not built for a building this size. So we'd like to replace that. And while doing that, we're going to move that steamer that's here now down to Maple. They've never had a steamer. All we need is a simple water line put in, and there's a sink right there. That's kind of a nice way to share some equipment. And I've already checked with the state. We are able to move it within the district. Just fill out a couple pieces of paper for them. Maple, they have a serving line there that we're not even sure how old it is, but it was built so that it's a short one, so that when I'm like, but the kids are here for 3 seconds, the staff are bending over like this for 2 hours. That's not going to work. So given that we do have some cash, it'd be really great to replace that. And we had a salesman come in the other day, and he goes, wow, this is really old. You don't see it because it has wooden tray slides, and you don't see that anywhere anymore. So we would like to replace that. And then I put in roughly $500 to move that steamer from the high school. And Bartlett is a very small kitchen. Currently, we have a 4-bay steam table, which is probably about this big. It's just too big. And it also hasn't worked well, and to fix it, it's kind of silly money. So we'd like to go down to a 2-bay, be more efficient, and utilize that space a little bit better. All totaled, and again, the items that have the 2 asterisks, those are my estimates. I kind of surfed the web. The pricing on equipment is changing pretty much every 30 days. So right now, the total is $85,718.19. I can't guarantee sitting here right now that is going to be exactly what we spend. It's probably going to be some more than that because of the way pricing is going. But this is what I had to prepare for you tonight. And we do have some installation costs, but in talking with Randy, none of the installations should be real. It's not like we're putting in a dish machine, and because those can, all of a sudden, you can have a lot of expense with that you don't even anticipate until the plumber shows up. So that is, right now, Scott, where did Laura estimate that we were going to come out at?
Minimally $125,000.
Yeah. So we're not looking to spend it all, but we'd like to spend a good chunk.
Anybody have any questions for Megan? Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you for everything. For the prices that you got from Kittredge Equipment, did you do an RFP process, or that's just you have a good working relationship with them?
Funny you bring that up. We just did procurement today. I sent out a one-page sheet to them, Northeast in Manchester on Kelly Street, I think it is, and Alternative Sales. Right now, and Kittredge and Alternative were the only ones who responded. Kittredge was lower by about $10,000 to $15,000. I was surprised at the difference, and the guy from Manchester didn't even reply. And I actually stopped in to ask him about that. I said, I'm not trying to play favorites. I just want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. And he said he's stepping out of the school. A lot of it is the school. A lot of schools have put such pressures on him to get equipment. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, I got companies that have told me we can take no more orders for 6 months because we're so far behind. I said, well, I understand it's going to be 6 months. I get that. So I'm hoping that, when we ask for these other items that, just to keep competition is important. But we do have a very good relationship with Kittredge. They've been very good with us.
Great, no, that's great. And the reason why I ask is just to make sure that we're following the policies
Right.
that are in place, so
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jared. Anyone else? So you need us to approve this tonight?
I would like that, and
Okay.
if you could, I would like, I'm going to ask, you can always say no, but I'm going to ask if we could spend up to 100 in case of price increases, and if anything's over that, then obviously we would need to come back for discussion.
So up to 100,000, and anything over, you'd come back?
Or I'd
Yes.
say no.
Who's everybody? Go ahead, Shane.
I just had a question. Did we say earlier that there had been an estimate that this would all cost about $125,000?
No.
No.
This year, we're going to run a surplus
Okay.
in food service due to the increased reimbursements from the federal government, as well as kids still buying à la carte meals, of minimally $125,000 surplus.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And we ended last year with, I wrote it down, 135,000. So I still want to put money into that so that we're as prepared as we can be for next year. You know, and really that's what the fund balance is for investing in this equipment. Yep.
If no one else has questions, if good to get a motion, or is this not something you guys want to approve tonight?
I'll move to approve.
To
Well,
up to 100,000?
I was gonna say 90,000, but if the board, I'll say 100 and people can object.
Well, that's what Megan asked. I'm just
I
asking
know.
if that's what you were saying.
I'll say 100,000. If there's an objection, I'm fine with amending it.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion for up to 100. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
By Jared?
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment for the board for technical reasons. So the motion should authorize the food service director to expend up to $100,000 from the existing food service fund balance.
Get that, Denise? What you said?
For the procurement of the items listed by the director.
I'm fine with that amendment.
All right, so Ellen's good with the amendment. Jared?
Yes.
You're good? Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we are unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And then
Thank you
we'll
very
plan
much.
to talk about that policy and the charges in June.
Okay.
Beginning of June. All right. Thank you
great.
so much for coming.
Thank you
Meg.
very much. We appreciate the support. The staff will be thrilled about the equipment.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so moving on to finance. Scott?
All right, well, first we'll tackle the manifest, which tonight is $1,338,651.90. As usual, the lion's share is your payroll, taxes, and benefits, totaling over $886,000. Special ed activity, a little over $127,000. General expenses, a little over $208,000. And food service, a little over $18,000. There was a typo on the general expenses, St. Anselm College, it should say hockey ice time, not team. And other than that, were there any questions for me?
Nope, seeing none. So we'll need a motion to approve the manifest.
So moved.
By Ellen, do I have a second? Second. By Ginny. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, so Jared's not here to vote, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So unfortunately, there wasn't an A&F meeting, so I have to cover some things that were not part of A&F and some of the things that came in today that aren't on your agenda but are related. One was I handed a kind of a redo of a motion on health trust. What I should have done was I should have included the entire amount that we received in that refund. portions of that amount went to the employees, the other portion went to the district. When you accepted to accept and expend, you just did it for the amount that the district received. So in your packet, somebody, I think, have a revised motion. Heather, you have one?
Yes, it's down under the ESSER grant stuff. It's called Revised Health Trust Refund Motion Requested.
So we just need
Little piece, so you need someone to read
to
the
make
top
that, make
part
that
or the
motion.
bottom part?
Just the bottom part.
Okay.
I'll motion to accept $578,961.92 from Health Trust for fiscal year 21 premium returns, of which $137,548.90 will be returned to current and terminated employees, and $441,413.02 will be accepted as unanticipated revenue. Furthermore, to direct administration to expend up to $441,413 on the referenced capital improvement projects as presented by the business administrator on April 4th, 2022.
All right, thank you, Shane. Do I have a second? So by Ginny. Any further discussion on this? Oh, go ahead, Ellen.
I spoke with Scott earlier, and I think this was raised at a previous meeting, but just for, I know the public's watching and all, when we're spending the various monies, they're from grants that we get, okay, and other unanticipated revenues. This money is coming back to us because, in essence, we were overpaying from a previous year's health premiums. That payment comes from our tax dollars, local tax dollars. So my question to the board, and I don't know if this is what Jared was referring to a couple of weeks ago or not, but shouldn't this money go back to the taxpayer then? Since it came out of what we raised for the budget at that time? I don't know. You correct me if my thinking's wrong, or if you disagree or something, but it just strikes me as funds, and it's no small amount, that we literally raised from local property taxes that we're getting back, and I'm wondering how the board would feel about giving it back to the public. Don't get me wrong, I know we're spending it on. I'm not saying things we're looking to spend it on is not worthwhile. I'm not saying that. And using that money on those CIP items, in essence, helps the tax base in the future.
Right.
I can certainly make that argument, no problem. Because there are things we just need to be doing to maintain our facilities and our programs and stuff. I just wanted to raise that and see how other board members feel about it. And I don't know how we would get these other items if we didn't spend this on that, but I wanted to bring it forward for board discussion.
Does anybody want to chime in? I know we've talked about these health trust funds quite a bit at retreat, starting back in February.
It's been a few months.
A few months. We've had hearings.
Yes, we have.
Does anybody want to comment or say anything? We have a motion. We have a second. We've decided what we want to do with this extra money. So no one is commenting, so.
I'm fine, I just wanted to raise that.
Absolutely.
Because of where the money comes from.
Go ahead, Jared.
Ellen, I appreciate your thought and candor on it. That is why I vote no on those things, but that's just me as an individual. I think all of these things are needed. I think that we should be going through the CIP process, through the warrant articles like we have, but that's just me as an individual, looking at it as my vote. So as I look at repurposing money we had set aside for something in particular, I always try to say, let's use it on things that we set it aside for versus something else. But that's just my philosophy, and that's why I vote no the way I did last time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Go ahead, Scott.
As I explained to Ellen before the meeting started, she asked that question to me. What I shared with her was that all these items are on the CIP. It has been fully disclosed. So these are going to be expenses that at some point in time would be incurred. That said, The board knew about this in November, and there were discussions about looking at what on CIP we could use that refund for. Then the board held a retreat, talked about those things. There is another way of skinning, there was another way of dealing with it, and that would have been to take a vote at that time to return it. And then to perhaps ask the voters to say, are you willing to spend 500, 600, 700,000 from unassigned fund balance to deposit into a capital reserve fund, and listed all those things. That did not happen, at that time. If that's what I thought, that's where the board was leaning, I would have suggested that, but that's not what happened. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm fine.
All right, so I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion before I take a vote? All right, all those in favor, aye, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes, noes, 2, and abstaining. You're abstaining? So we have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention. Did you get that, Denise? Okay. All right, thank you, guys.
All right, next I wanted to share with you was an update on the ESSER 2 Windows project. Everything has been set in motion. Contract has been signed. I want to thank Kevin Collmore, who is actually New Boston's attorney, but who had very intimate knowledge of the contract that we were executing. He actually reviewed that for us, turned that around in a day. So it allowed us to get this contract signed, get these windows ordered. Very, very important with supply chain issues. That being said, so the good news is that everything is in progress. The windows have been ordered. The bad news is that we are in the process of testing the caulking in some of the windows openings to see if there is any asbestos, and if there is asbestos, we have to mitigate that. So we do have a contingency. As I mentioned to you before, if there is asbestos in every single window opening, we would not only eat up that contingency, but possibly the entire ESSER 2 grant, which is why I didn't allocate that money, but we'll wait and see. One of the issues that we're dealing with is that according to our construction plans, there is no asbestos-containing materials, say at Mountain View Middle School. They still test. So even though that it was deemed no asbestos-containing materials at Mountain View, if they do test the window blocks, and there is asbestos there, we have to deal with it. So just wanted, I'll keep you posted. You'll probably know more maybe first week of June, we'll know more there. So I just wanted to let you know. But right now, we are on course to do Bartlett and Maple as the first part, and then once those are completed, then we do the high school and the middle school. And if we do have any extraordinary asbestos-related issues, we'll let the board know if we have to change the scope. Just for your knowledge, because this is a federal program, you have to pay what's called Davis-Bacon wages, prevailing wage rates. If this were not a federal program, your asbestos abatement would be in the $45 range, $40 to $45. So you're looking at $73 an hour per employee to do that. So just for perspective. So that was it for that one.
Scott, can I just add that it's not just asbestos. There are other materials, there are other kinds of PCBs that it could be in the window caulking.
Yeah.
Just not just asbestos. We have to cast a wider net.
So the other one that came in today was Laura and Randy. Laura, your facilities director, provided me with a recommendation on the seal coating, which was just what you just voted on. One of those items was seal coating. If you'll recall, we set aside a budget of $80,000 for that. The bids were opened. The memo, or you have a handout here, just to kind of quickly recap that. There were 6 bids from the vendors that are listed. Unfortunately, there were only 2 vendors that submitted complete bids based upon the specifications, and that was Premier Asphalt Maintenance and Hooksett Paving Company. The other vendors, the bids were incomplete, either a lot of items incomplete or a few items incomplete, which didn't allow us to kind of do an analysis. Based upon a review by Randy and Laura, they are recommending that the board accept the bid from Premier Asphalt Maintenance. However, recognizing that we have only allocated $80,000, and also recognizing that Premier Asphalt Maintenance, as well as Hooks at Paving, who was not the successful bidder, because they specified their bids as they did, Randy will be able to work with Premier Asphalt to determine which schools we're going to be able to do, or what types of services, because they're talking seal coating and line striping. It'll give Randy and Dawn the opportunity to determine, will we seal coat and line stripe a school, will we just line stripe a school, et cetera. So the pricing is such that he'll be able to work that out with the vendor. Second page is essentially Randy's recommendation, which is to proceed with Premier Asphalt Maintenance. And your third page is just all of the analysis that Randy, mostly Laura, compiled this one, and this is just the bid specs that are public in terms of what people bid on. So I would, does the board have any questions? If not, then I would just ask for a motion to accept the bid from Premier Asphalt Maintenance.
Go ahead, Ellen.
My question, I don't know if I understood you right, Scott. The scope of this project will be such that it comes within what we've budgeted.
Correct. So they're gonna have to, the original bid was to seal coat and line stripe every single school. We're not gonna be able to do that.
Right.
We're gonna do the best we can.
Okay.
But with the vendor that gave us the most competitive pricing, who actually did it, did the
Okay.
bid completely.
Did a complete,
So
yeah.
we would keep
Yeah.
the same amount, we would scale back the scope of the
Correct.
project. So we'll still hit that target number, but we won't be able to do everything.
But at another point in the future, we may need to do that.
Yep, probably not this year, though.
Right.
This will probably be the
Okay.
one and only shot of doing any of this
Yeah.
kind of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Scott? All right, so is anybody ready to do a motion on this?
I'll move that we,
Award the bid.
Award,
Want me to
thank
do
you.
it? Yeah.
Award
Award
the
the bid to,
to Premier Asphalt Maintenance for the seal coating and line striping?
Of $120,680.
No.
no, just award the bid.
Award the bid.
Award the
Is that
bid.
Right, award the bid and allow the facilities director to negotiate the scope based upon a project budget of $80,000.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
By Jared. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? We're unanimous. Thank you, Scott.
And I had one other one, and I know Brian will touch upon that, but
Okay.
we are getting notifications of different grant windows that are opening up on a whole variety of things, and Brian, you'll talk about.
I will.
You'll talk about that.
Yep,
Okay.
I got them.
Okay. So you're all set? You're all set,
Yes,
Scott?
I'm all set.
All right, thank you. All right, Budget Committee, Jared, Ellen, who's reporting out tonight?
The next meeting will be April 19th.
Tomorrow.
Or tomorrow, is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah.
That Ellen will be attending, right here at the high school,
All right, perfect.
in this room at 7 PM.
All right, thank you. PNC,
Yes,
Betta?
PNC met this evening, and we actually had a lot of topics that we covered because we won't be meeting next month. So our final meeting will be on June 6th. So as you know, I've been mentioning that this week is Volunteer Appreciation Week, and Brian will be speaking to that later in his superintendent report. But I will just say that we get a lot of things done through volunteers in the Goffstown school system, so we really appreciate it. Also, the first week of May is Teacher Appreciation Week, and as you know, you should have received the invitation that there will be an all-staff meeting with the teachers and staff, both Goffstown and Boston, and at that point in time, the school board will show their appreciation with what always tastes good.
What was the date?
It's the week of May 4th.
Are you talking, what, are you talking about the whole week or the thing
The date.
of the
I
presentation?
think we did
The staff meeting,
I
you
got
should
that.
have gotten this invitation.
Yeah.
for May 4th. So that's a really great way. They'll all come to us. In the past, we've put on events at community 50 schools. And the board members have been invited to go as well, so if you're able to make it, it's a way that we can also thank them in person. We'll be talking about the vision and mission statement later under old business. And also, as you recall, we have talked about the legislation that's come up, and if this is something that we as a school board should be doing, and to just be aware of the legislation that might impact the schools. And so we talked a little bit about this again, because we're not meeting until June 6th, and that will likely have come to a close. I'd like to recommend that we bring this to our retreat in June to talk about how we would like to incorporate this or not into our regular business. In the meantime, you can go out and see what the legislation is out there. We've talked a little bit about it here, but it's not too late to inform yourselves. We will have a retreat in June, either the 6th or the 20th, and next time we meet, we'll probably get closer to finalizing that date. In the past, we've done that at St. A's. In addition, we'll do a board self-evaluation and bring that to the retreat to discuss. And one other item, just as you know, this committee has been meeting as needed in the past. I think for continuity, we're going to go back to just scheduling it the first Monday of the month, and if there's no business, we'll just cancel it. That way there's not so much mystery around it. That's all we have.
Perfect. Wow, that's a lot.
Yes. Busy time of year.
Yes. All right, policy review, we met again last week, so we have been extremely busy with policies. Later in the agenda, we have questions from last time's first reads, and then we have another set of first reads tonight. Our next meeting is May 9th at 5:30 at the SAU. C&E?
C&E will be meeting May 23rd at 6:30 at the SAU. And this meeting will be an all-school end-of-the-year review of what has been done and where we're going for next year.
Perfect. Thank you, Ginny.
You're welcome.
Facilities Planning Committee, Jared?
The committee met last Thursday. It was great. We saw Scott eat lots of bacon and mushroom pizza while we were there.
But they're talking about you.
It's before Passover.
But we had a good 2.5-hour meeting, and fortunately, we did not come to a consensus, so we will be meeting again in the month of May. So we will be looking to schedule something with the board after that.
All right, perfect. All right, you're all set?
Yep.
Thank you, Jared. All right, Brian, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you. So as Retta mentioned briefly, I did want to recognize that this is School Volunteer Week, and this year the theme is Empathy in Action. So I'd like to pause and just thank the many wonderful volunteers we have as part of our athletic programs, our performing arts programs. We have a lot of people who give a lot of time and really make Goffstown the special place that it is. So I'd like to thank all of our wonderful volunteers, and we are working on a recognition sort of press release that we'll put out that we're doing in collaboration with the select board if we're able to get there. So I think this will be a good thing, but again, many thank you to all the wonderful volunteers that we have, and really we couldn't do it without you. Mr. Cloutier is not here this evening, but I wanted to bring forth a recommendation to consider getting the tech committee back together. Mr. Cloutier is I believe the only school board rep on that committee. Mr. Bourget has a number of things to update the tech committee, so I think we were looking at holding a tech committee meeting before the end of the year, so I wanted to let Mr. Cloutier know that and make sure he's in concurrence, and we'll get that scheduled. We are recommending that we don't hold a school board meeting the Monday we get back from vacation on May 2nd. So unless there's any objection, I think at this point, Mr. Gross, from a financial perspective, I think we're good not to proceed on May 2nd.
Yeah.
So at this point, we do not have an agenda that we've been planning, so we will not post the meeting.
Everybody got that? No May 2nd meeting?
No, May 2nd.
So Mr. Gross mentioned a couple rounds of grants, and I wanted to let the board know that there are several new grant project possibilities that we are pursuing. And the first of which is a hazard mitigation grant through Fema. This is something that the board has heard about in the past. These grant monies are allowable for generator projects, and that's specifically what we're looking at and targeting. What's also a little different about this particular round of the hazard mitigation grant is it looks like it's up to a 90% cost share with only a 10% local. That's lower than what it had been in the past. So we have not taken any action on this, but if the board is in concurrence, we would like to reach out to our FEMA rep, make sure we can confirm the amount, and find out what we can about this project. So this would be a reimbursement project. The last time we were looking to do this, it was a 50-50. So, and we had looked at another reimbursement structure that if it was the town seeking the money, that the town would get a higher percentage. But so we'd like to pursue this. This is a project that is currently in the CIP, and specifically what we would target would be a generator project here at Goffstown High School. This would be essentially a large, full-capacity generator, which would then allow us the ability to change our emergency shelter, which is currently Mountain View Middle School. And as you all know, Mountain View has one way in, one way out. That area is notoriously problematic for power, and the generator at Mountain View is original to the date when the school was built. We put a lot of work into the generator, but it does not supply electricity to the entire school, including the kitchen in the emergency shelter. So there are a number of limitations. We have worked with our emergency management partners in the police and fire department and have wanted to make this change for many years. So at this point, I think I would just say by consensus, if the board is interested, we're happy to chase this a little bit. We have not even made the call yet, so I wanted to bring this to the board for your consideration.
Shaking of heads to, yes, go
It
forward and
makes
ask.
sense. We don't even know if we'll get it. We don't know if we'll be eligible. We don't know how much money they have. We don't know if towns are being prioritized over schools. There are a number of factors here, and I don't want to get my hopes up too much because I've done that a number of times with these kinds of projects. But this one looks like it could be pretty promising. And, you know, if you think about probably north of $250,000 generator, that you get 90% of the reimbursement from FEMA, that's pretty good. So there would be a massive benefit to the Goffstown community. Now, the other piece that we've just heard about today, actually, Mr. Gross and I heard about this, is there may be some additional federal grant money available for some school safety projects. So we have a couple of projects in particular that we have discussed that are CIP projects, and at this point, we haven't seen any paperwork. We don't know any of the parameters, but it could be that some of the ESSER projects that we were considering could be grant eligible. So we might potentially want to think about changing course when we see the documentation. But at this point, we wanted to let you know that that's in process. I wanted to let you know that Mrs. Kohler continues to work with Jessica Milligan, our new middle school principal, on transition. And Mrs. Milligan has been very involved with hiring and another of other important transition efforts. So even though Jess has not started with us yet, Wendy is working very, very closely with her. She's been involved in hiring. She's interviewed candidates. So she's been doing a lot of after-hours work on her transition. So that will continue. Speaking of transition, for the last several years, pre-COVID, we had done an event at YMCA where the Allard Center hosted an event where we had our Goffstown and New Boston sixth graders together for the first time. So we've had that scheduled, and unfortunately the YMCA is needing to cancel that due to a lack of staffing. So we're disappointed by that, but we're trying to come up with a plan B. So if we can come up with an alternative, I did volunteer Mr. Gross and myself and Mrs. McGrath and a number of other people to help run groups and activities to cook, to do whatever we need to make this event happen. So unfortunately, it won't be what we had planned, but we're working on kind of an updated plan. So I'll let you know if we're able to pull that off. Mrs. Trapaz mentioned the May 4th SAU-wide staff meeting. I do think it would be great if board members are able to attend. I do recognize it's an early time, so people who have kind of more traditional work hours, that could be problematic. We will post those as, so that board members will be in attendance, just on the off chance that we have a quorum present, but it would be great if you're able to be there. And
That's here.
that is here out back on the football field, which currently has no turf. And my last piece, I wanted to let you know that we are holding a special social media presentation called Social Media, A Predator's Playground. And this is being hosted by our old friend and colleague, Deputy Matt Fleming, who is part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And this session will be May 10th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So again, it's a tricky, complicated world out there, and I think we can't do enough to provide parents with support, because it's not easy to parent kids in an environment where there's an awful lot of risk associated with online activity. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that board members may have.
Anybody? Oh, Scott.
You forgot one big one, Brian. We don't often get a victory lap. So I told Heather, I testified against two bills. One was a default budget calculation bill and at the Senate, and the tax cap, or the budget cap, both were defeated and expedient to legislate. So that was this afternoon.
Yep, and Mr. Gross's testimony was very compelling. So I'm impressed. We often see that committees at the legislature don't tend to listen to comment. They tend to overwhelmingly just vote down party lines. I make no political statement here. You can look at voting records and realize this yourselves, but people listen to Scott. And in a very straightforward way, Scott was able to make some very profound counter arguments that really made people think.
Yeah,
And,
I want to let the board, especially the public, know that those two bills were technically flawed. So the budget cap article, bill, was technically flawed in the sense that it just set an arbitrary cap per se. But when we're getting this ESSER funding, that would automatically be a 5% cap. You wouldn't be able to take and expend federal grants because it would exceed it. And the senators, that never came up. I didn't testify at the House, but that never came up. And I made it clear to the senators that in all of their communities who were receiving millions in federal grants, none of their communities, if they had a tax cap over 5%, would have been able to accept the money. So it's that was one. And then secondly, the other bill on the default budget, basically that would have forced school boards to reduce their own operating, to reduce the default budget whenever there were reductions in the operating budget that you made. Well, one of the lead sponsors of the bill didn't fully understand how we use functions, the regular education function, special education function. And I showed them from Goffstown's budget forms that we actually had we lowered our default budget in general education by, I think, over $100,000. And then we had to raise it in special education, and this happens all the time. And again, just technically flawed bills, but the people who sponsored the bill did not know how the DRA does their work, how school districts do their work. And once they learned that, they recognized that they were just significantly flawed. So it wasn't just, this was technical. This was nothing to do with politics. This is just not good bills.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes. All right, anything else for Brian? Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment on the social media safety presentation. I attended it last year, and it was really, really informative. So any parents listening, it really is good and slightly shocking, but very informative of what you should be looking for.
Thank you, Retta.
And it's really hard for parents to stay up to date. This stuff all moves so fast.
Yes.
Our kids move so much faster than we do, and it's really hard to feel like you know everything that you need to know as a parent.
All right, moving on, we have old business. The first is, we had first reads back in April 4th. Is there any questions on any of those policies? If not, then they'll come back at the next school board meeting, and we will make motions to vote on them. Any questions? No? All right, perfect, thank you. So the next part is the ESSER project updates. Scott,
Yeah,
that's
that's
you
me.
again.
So as, for Caroline's benefit and for those in the audience, Goffstown and any other school districts received a lot of money in ESSER funds. We've held a lot of public information sessions, talked about it at board meetings. We've also held a couple of public hearings to get public input on all of these types of projects. Now we're at a point where we start to need to take some action on these. So I prepared some motions for you, but the first one is the Mountain View Middle School bus turnaround. This one we were waiting on conceptual approval by the Department of Education. We had not yet gotten that. I'm pleased to say that we did get that last week on Monday. So this is a conceptually approved project. As you know, most of the engineering has already been done by Stantec Engineering, and Randy, myself, and Laura chatted with Dan Tatum about the project. And we're at a point now where the board needs to, commit. There is a possibility that this project could be completed by the fall, but again, board action is kind of needed, to do all of the due diligence, on the project. Dan thinks that he can have a lot of the work done in the next 4 to 5 weeks, which would then put us in the position to put it out to bid, hopefully again for a September or maybe October type of timeline. So with that, we have earmarked about $130,000. Stantec did do some cost estimates, so we feel, as you never know how these things go in terms of when you put them out to bid, but we feel that that's an adequate amount for the engineering as well as the project itself.
All right, does anybody have any questions or ready to read the motion? Jared?
Just one thing that came up during the Facilities Committee about the bus turnaround. At the intersection where people currently diverge with the buses and the personal cars, is that traffic pattern going to change when they remerge? Are they both going to have stop signs, or is one going to have yield versus a stop sign? That was a question that people had related to the buses coming down the same path that they go up and personal vehicles coming in from the other direction.
So that there will be,
Yeah. Yeah.
the vehicles, as you go on up, if you turn onto Lauren Lane, the passenger vehicles and parents, they'll make the right turn to go up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
The buses go to the left.
Mm-hmm.
This plan would call for the buses to drop off the students behind the school, use that turnaround or this really big cul-de-sac, and then come down that same road. When they come down the hill, they're going to have to stop for any parents that are coming down the hill. But the benefit of this plan is that right now they're at the mercy of parents, giving them enough space to make a left where the softball field is. So we're essentially segregating or separating out the bus traffic from the car traffic.
But Scott, when they remerge together, is there going to be a right-of-way for the buses versus the cars?
No, the way that it's designed right now, the bus has to stop and the vehicle has the right-of-way.
So they don't have a stop either? The cars coming down?
The cars do not have a stop currently.
Okay.
It would be the buses that
No,
would
but when
have
we
to
do
stop.
the bus turnaround, both wouldn't stop, and
We
whoever
have
gets there
not
first.
designed,
Okay.
it's not currently designed that way.
Right, no, I know it's not
It's something
like
that
that
could be
now.
looked at,
But Scott, we should also share that we often have someone directing traffic
right
there, so that's
Oh, is
actually.
there someone down there
Mrs.
now?
Kohler does it every day.
At the bottom?
Oh,
She's
you're talking at the
top.
bottom.
We're
I'm
talking
sorry,
at the bottom.
At the top.
Yeah, she's at the top, but
Gotcha.
we're talking at the bottom.
Yeah, this is the
'cause
bottom.
now
I
they're
don't-
merging into one.
I don't think we're gonna have a lot of issues there. Right now, the hardest part is when even though it's private property, when you switch up a stop sign situation, people are not used to it. So I think, Dan, our engineer, would be the best resource to see if that's something to consider, and I can certainly ask him.
It was just a concern that individuals had.
Right.
And I want to make sure that I express that to the board for.
Scott, we could also
Yeah, no,
reach out
thank you,
to
Jared.
Stantec and see if they have any thoughts on that, because they work with municipalities on traffic flow all the time.
Right.
If
Go
not
ahead,
stop,
Ellen.
a yield for one
Something.
or the other.
Yeah, because
To
that's
have
just going to
yield,
bottleneck
So
right
that
there.
it can go, you don't have to stop if there's nothing there, but maybe a yield sign for either the cars or the buses, not both, but
Right.
that would kind of make sense.
Yeah, something.
I would think that the buses coming back down
Should have the right of way.
they should have to stop,
Okay.
because they're at an intersection and people
True,
are
and the other
coming
ones are
down
gonna
the
have
hill.
down,
I'd rather stop the buses.
Whichever.
Shane, go ahead.
I had two kind of questions or thoughts. Would it make sense to have someone directing traffic towards the bottom as well? That's my first question or thought. And my second one is, I think Scott said this could be completed by September, October.
It's possible.
If this were bleed into the school year, would it create a bigger traffic issue for that period of time?
Over the next few
If
weeks.
it's not done by
You know
the
what I mean?
time
If it's not
school
done
starts.
Oh, if it's not, oh,
Yeah,
I
we're-
see. into-
We're gonna
into
have to
next
work
year.
with the contractor to make sure that we have temporary access through there. So I think it'll be okay. They're gonna know that they need to have it passable, so if they're working on it during the day, and that can be problematic because construction vehicles are loud, there's a lot of, noise. Sometimes there's grinding and all kinds of things. So we'll have to make sure that it doesn't impact teaching and learning, but
It's not a big project.
we'll be okay with that, because they'll know we need them. The only way we can do this is we can't shut down operations.
Right.
Right.
And
Yep.
this is a project that I'm hugely in favor of.
Yeah.
That was just a concern. Would it create,
Right,
for a short
more.
period of time, a bigger headache?
Right,
But
more
And
problems.
sometimes you gotta go backwards to go forward, so
Yeah.
a little bit of pain might be okay, because it's gonna get better.
Yeah, but definitely having somebody down there directing traffic, I don't know, Lauren and Tibbetts, that would be,
Well,
That's
so
not
now-
school property,
Yeah,
so
and so now
that's
you get into
the
the
police
whole,
department.
we don't have we have no crossing guards, we don't
Right.
direct traffic. That's a function of the police department, and as I think
Yeah.
you know, the police department has had a very difficult time staffing those positions.
yeah.
So, but the chief is acutely aware. We've had many spirited conversations about traffic associated with schools, because we know that we create a lot of traffic problems
Yeah.
in Goffstown.
So for the bus, did the bid go out, or is it in process?
There is no bid.
There's no bid on
There's no
this
bid
one.
because you need to, if you approve this, then Stantec finishes up all of their design. They'll create the RFP for us, then we'll put it out to bid.
Right.
So we're not quite there yet.
Right. This would allow all that to happen.
So the motion is at number 1 there, Ellen. So if there's no other questions for Scott and everybody's good to go forward, we need someone to read the
Okay.
motion.
I'll do it.
Go ahead.
I move to authorize the business administrator to proceed with the MVMS bus turnaround project using ESSER 2 funds up to $130,000 and to work with the district's engineering consultant, Stantec, to develop construction documents, cost estimates, and an RFP for this project. The board reserves the right to adjust the use of the ESSER funds amount after engineering and cost estimates are complete.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second? Second by Ginny. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Okay, Scott, the
All right,
next
the
one.
next project is the turf field, or field renovation project at Goffstown High School. And this one is 3 facets to it. It's a field, artificial surface field. It is lighting, and it's also bleachers. This is the project also where we have a private donor who's willing to contribute up to $500,000. On this particular project, there's a lot of legwork that has to be done. In particular, I think, as I mentioned, we didn't have an A&F meeting, but similar to the Goffstown High School theater committee, a small group of individuals, which would include the athletic director, another administrator here at the high school, myself, someone from facilities, and several community members would participate. Again, not a heavy lift for the folks that are going to be doing the theater project, not really a heavy lift here, but again, I think more so for community awareness and community input. Certainly there are some modest design elements in this, but again, just garnering community input is the biggest reason. Parks and Rec wanted to be part of that committee.
So you're reporting back to us.
Correct, as to that.
Right.
The board need a board member, clearly on this one. And I did reach out to Ellen. I had a conversation with her. I've worked with Ellen on projects before.
Right.
Love to work with her again on it, something like this. But
Okay.
so that's kind of where we stand. We don't have a ton of time because if this project goes forward, the gentleman that I spoke to says that if you start in April, you need to start in April to be done by August. So with that, there's just a lot of work that has to happen so that you can hopefully get that RFP out by the fall, have the bid awarded, and then construction to start. It's a lot of logistics for the athletic director because your spring sports would not be, and your practices, you couldn't do it here. So there's a lot of partnership with Parks and Recreation, there's transportation. So there's a lot that has to happen here.
And this one's already been conceptually approved, right?
Yes, this one has been approved by the state of New Hampshire. The conceptual plan, as most of you know, or for those of you here in the audience or on TV, on these construction projects for ESSER, you have to have 2 approvals from the state. The first approval is a conceptual plan approval. Does your use of ESSER funds comply with the federal grant? Answer is yes, similar to the bus turnaround. Then after that, then you have to do all of your engineering. So similar to the bus turnaround project, Stantec will do the engineering on that project, and then all of that gets submitted for final approval. Same thing on this project. There would be a civil engineer that would have to do all the plans for under drainage, lighting, all those specifications. And when that's all done, then the state gives their final stamp and you can proceed. So it's just, these grants, they take a lot of time. And the bus turnaround one, the Windows project one, that was a good 6 months in the making. So we're just trying to get ahead of things.
Are there any questions for Scott, or if not, we can read this motion?
I'll do it.
All right, go ahead.
I motion to authorize the business administrator to proceed with the GHS field renovation project using ESSER 3 funds of up to $1 million and to create a GHS field renovations committee as outlined in the memo provided to the board on April 18th, 2022, which details the composition of the committee and the planned scope of work for this project. The board understands that this project also includes a private donation of up to $500,000, the use of impact fees up to $350,000, and other potential revenue sources that do not involve a tax appropriation.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have a second? By Ginny. Any further discussion before I take a vote? All right. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Do you want to figure out the renovations committee now? We would need 1 board member and 1 alternate.
Yes, that would be very helpful.
Okay. So does somebody want to volunteer to be on this renovations committee? We don't know any information of time. Ellen?
You're talking about the field?
Yes.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
All right, so Ellen, and is anybody,
Be the alternate.
you have Shane to be the alternate? Okay.
Unless Ginny wants to.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
If you have trouble, I'll
She'll be the alternate.
I'll be the alternate.
She'll be babysitter.
Babysitter, yes.
I love
She'll
it.
be the babysitter.
So once we
Sounds like date night, Shane. I would take it. I would take it.
That's right. Once we finalize committees later, I'll add that with those 2 names and have that resent out to you guys. All right, so the next one is the high school electronic message board sign.
Yeah, so on this one, you'll recall that this is an electronic message board sign that is being to be funded by ESSER funds partly, well, about 60%. The balance of that by class donations. So I think the last 3 classes have donated funds to the school, and this aligns with use of those funds. So there's up to $15,000 available for this project. We got initial estimates of around $40,000 for this project, so I've kind of built in about $3,000 of contingency on the project. I did get some pricing from a couple of vendors, so I feel pretty good about that. This has to go through the process with the town. So this is another one where it's great in concept, but this could take months to get to kind of go through that process. The school district and the town, and Kimberly is here, and Kimberly is on the planning board. They would typically, they would hear this. We are kind of waived out, but there's always a process where you want to be respectful neighbors, and you want to, even though you don't have to necessarily comply with the ordinances, you want to, as best you can, comply with things. The town is doing a similar project on Mast Road. One of the benefits of this particular project, which is better than the current situation, is that you can dim these things down, put them on total black, and it's actually better than what we have now in terms of neighborhoods. And so you can turn these things off or dim them down at whatever time and fire them back up. But we also need to be responsible neighbors and not put any animations, and just really, it's more, there are so many events at Goffstown High School and so many community events that you need to change the signage. It would be nice to have the ability to do it 4, 5, 6 times, on a cycle, which we can't do now. But this is going to take a little bit of time, as I have to go through the town planning board process, with the neighbors, get their input, et cetera. So it's just trying to get a little bit of a head start in this thing. It could take 6 months. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jared.
Just as part of this motion, we're going to be taking the current sign and put it at Maple.
My hope is to repurpose the existing sign. Yeah.
Do we have to have any added costs and that in the motion?
I'm not going to know that until I speak with the vendor.
Okay.
So depending upon who handles this project, there have been a couple of vendors who have done a lot of work for the school and town at a very reduced cost, because they have kids in this town, and so it's hard to say what that will be. And if that became cost prohibitive, if there was a cost, I would certainly let you know. But
Jared, I think we were looking to put the sign at Mountain View.
Mountain View.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Mountain View.
Mountain View, because the sign here is larger.
It's larger.
We thought it would look out of place at Maple, although I think the Maple Ave sign is tired, even though we painted it a number of times. The flagpole is tired. We could use some facelifting going on there, but this sign from the high school, we would put at Mountain View.
So most likely then, if for a follow-up, most likely that if there are costs associated with it, it'll be coming back to the board to move it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think at this point, I don't know that we would be looking at anything. I don't think so.
Okay.
So let's hold off until we kind of get a little more. Is that fair, Scott?
Yeah, it is fair. Although I'm envisioning, based on your comments earlier, buses this way.
This way?
Could be able to,
Yeah.
maybe
Could be one of
add
these,
into the
Scott.
could be one of these. So, got me thinking.
All right. Any other questions for Scott on this sign? If not, then somebody can read the motion. Go ahead, Ginny.
I motion to authorize the business administrator to proceed with the GHS electronic message board project using up to $28,000 in ESSER 3 funds, and to work with the state and local officials to ensure grant and local ordinance compliance. The board understands that the balance of this project will come from GHS class donations.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Do I have a second? Ellen, was that a hand up? All right, thank you, Alan. Any further discussion before I take a vote? All right, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
I forgot to say something, it doesn't impact how you voted
Okay,
on
good.
2. But we did approach the New Boston Board about contributing towards the field renovation project.
Oh, yes.
Earmarking up to $100,000 for their use of ESSER funds.
Right.
And they heard that, and they're basically going to be they had a public hearing, and also they're going to be waiting for public opinion. And I think on their first meeting in May, they're going to vote on their ESSER plan, and that is part of it. So Brian and I did approach New Boston about a contribution on that project, and it gives the project a bit more wiggle room in terms of contingency, and that's the one word now that, I look at you all the time, because every single project that we deal with, you need that contingency reserve. It's just the way it goes. So hard lessons learned from the modular project at Glen Lake.
This is a lot of projects to juggle. Like,
Yeah,
this is a lot.
this is big. We've been busy. All right, so Scott, we're all set
That was
with
it, yeah.
all this stuff?
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. All right, so the next is the committee assignments. You should have a copy of the final count of people. Is there any that anybody would like to change? Jared, are you still able to do budget committee, or do you want to
Rock on.
switch? Okay, because I know are Tuesdays hard for you? Well, because we can switch if you want Ellen to take it.
We're good.
alternate.
Ellen and I think we always talk beforehand, but I'll let her speak about how she thinks about it, but I think we're good.
We're doing okay.
Okay, well, if you need to switch
You
it, let
guys
me
don't
know.
mind, world.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Just let me know if you need to switch. And then I will add Renovations Committee and resend this out to you guys. But if everybody's good with what you see, then we just need a shake of heads that we're good with this.
You don't want a motion?
No, we don't need a
Okay.
motion. We just need, that way the next time all the committees meet, you'll re-elect chairs
By
and that kind of
consensus.
stuff.
Okay.
Just one note for Budget Committee, they're meeting on Tuesdays and not Thursdays.
Aha.
So-
So is it still the 3rd?
It's, I believe so, talking to Jeff, but they're targeting Tuesdays.
But it's Tuesdays now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 3rd. Yeah.
And also with the planning and communication, we're going to go back to the first Monday of the month.
Okay, instead of
And
one
we'll-
needed.
And we'll
Okay.
cancel it.
So first Monday of every month.
And Heather, I would just share for curriculum and education, Sam
Yep.
Perrin is the New Boston rep. He's not an alternate.
Oh, okay. Do they have an alternate for him?
I don't recall, but I do recall that Mr. Perrin is
Yep, he sits on it.
He
Okay.
sits on it.
All right, so I'll change that.
I think they do. We'll have to get you who the alternate was.
Okay,
Is it Carrie?
okay. All right, everybody else good with what they see? All right, so this is good? Yes? Shaking of heads? All right. Thank you, guys. All right, new business. The Drummond Woodsum letter was sent out to all of us. Brian, you want to?
Scott, you want me to tee this up, or you want to tee this one up?
I'd like you to tee it up, because I think you have more knowledge of special ed in this regard.
I think that's true, but I haven't been as intimately involved with this process,
Well,
but
we
why
can-
don't we do it?
I can tee it up, and you can then hit the second ball or something in the basketball tournament.
How about this? Let me hit the first ball.
Okay.
All right,
This sounds like
let's
it's
go.
gonna be interesting.
Yeah. So the short version of this is there's an attorney who works for Drummond and Woodsum named Jerry Zellen, who has been a special education attorney for a really long time. And there are a number of concerns right now because the state is engaging in these residential placements that fall under the Department of Health and Human Services, and there are a number of challenges to school districts associated with this. DHHS doesn't provide services for certain special education services. There are a number of just shortcomings, and specifically, there's a court case, Verrill versus DHHS, that has been precedent setting for a long time, And what Mr. Zelen, who I have known and worked with for close to 25 years, there is nobody more knowledgeable than Jerry Zelen. He would like to file what's called a friend of the court brief, and he would essentially make an argument that the Department of Health and Human Services position is contrary to the interests of school districts, taxpayers, as well as developmentally disabled students and their parents. So he is essentially asking districts that would like to join this. They've already had 2 districts put together $11,000 to help support the legal costs to basically defend this position, and they're asking school districts that would be interested and able to contribute either $500 or $1,000 to this cause. I will tell you, we do have one of these placements, so we have skin in the game here. So there is an incentive for us to participate in this, and we would recommend, Scott, what were we recommending?
1,000.
1,000?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I think larger districts, 1,000, like a smaller district like New Boston, 500.
So I will tell you that we do have a legal fee, a legal line for special education. We do have sufficient funds to be able to cover that cost out of this. But because this could be perceived as a bit of a political type issue, for me, this is a school funding issue. This is a financial issue. And we believe that this position that Mr. Zelen is taking is worthy of consideration, and we'd like to recommend that we participate in the Friend of the Court brief.
Go ahead, Ellen.
I don't have it in front of me, but I did
You
read
do.
that letter.
It's in your packet.
Yeah.
The front letter is from Dr. Dolph.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the letter
I did read the whole thing.
from the lawyers, the
prior.
second half.
It sounded to me, as I read it, the potential for district liability and costs could be huge if that thing passed.
I think it already is.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah.
I think it already is.
Residential placements and that kind
Yep.
of stuff is, but is this the bill that it also looking to not end the school district responsibility after age 21?
Yeah, so that's
Yes,
House
it-
Bill 1513, and what that would be, the federal law that pertains to special education is called the IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and it covers children ages 3 to until 21. On their 21st birthday, this program of entitlement comes to an end. House Bill 1513 would increase that age until age 22. And as somebody who, as a former special education teacher and administrator, this is something that I support for families, but the state already doesn't pay us for an adequate education. And increasing this burden of cost until age 22 is something that I categorically do not support. The state of Massachusetts has been doing this for a long time. I can't even remember how many years ago it's been, but they go until age 22. And so that bill, and again, this is good for kids, it's good for families, but for a school district, if you have a student who might have, the better part of $75,000 or more in costs associated with them, remember, you're getting base adequacy, which is $3,700, and then you get a small amount of differential aid if students are special education students. That's it. Now, if there are significant costs, there is something called special education aid. It used to be called catastrophic aid. We do get some of that money back, but not all of it, and not always. And there have been a lot of times over the years where we didn't get that fully funded. But so there's a lot to unpack here. I don't want to come across as being unsympathetic to special education students and their families. It couldn't be farther from the truth, but this continues to be another example that right now, we know what the cost of an adequate education is, but the state doesn't pay us for it. So the average per pupil cost in the state is around $18,000, and we get $3,700. And the rest of that comes from local taxpayers. So fundamentally, I continue to have lots of issues with how we fund education, but notwithstanding, we would recommend participating in this Friend of the Court brief. and a contribution of $1,000 from your existing legal line.
Anyone have questions, statements on this? Or motion? Go ahead, Shane.
Look at this one.
I'll motion to become a friend of the court and contribute $1,000 to this cause.
Okay. Is there a
that covers it.
second? By Ginny. Any further discussion, questions before I take a vote?
Can we have feedback, follow up when something happens?
Yeah, when we have updates, we'll let you know. And again, this is going to be slow.
Yeah.
So like any court process, this is going to take time.
So this motion is just to spend the money, not necessarily to join the friend of the court brief.
It would be
It'd be both of them.
It'd be both.
The way he set it up.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. We'll take a vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. We're unanimous. Thank you, guys. All right, moving on. So the next is, there's a ton of first reads, so Denise put our minutes from our meeting in, so you could read through them, because there are a ton of policies that we went through. We highlighted stuff that was recommended. Everything was vetted through administrators, and then we went through it by line by line. So this will come back at the next school board meeting with questions. All right? And mission and vision statements. That's you, Retta.
Yes. So you got the most updated Goffstown School District mission, vision, and guiding principles, along with the Goffstown School Board mission and guiding principles document. So you had gotten a copy a couple of meetings ago, maybe a month ago, and there were some minor edits, mostly some additions of a couple of words. So I just want to go back to originally how this all came about. Actually, it goes back to C&E because we were in the middle of updating the handbooks, and all of the vision and mission statements were in there. And then actually, I think at a retreat last year, we talked a little bit about that. And it became clear that in the handbooks, it really wasn't consistent in all of the handbooks. And so the committee started looking at it, and what we did is try to condense it. We did a little bit of editing, and I can go through where we made those changes, but it really wasn't changing any of the guiding principles or the nature of the statements, with the exception on the school board, the school board mission and guiding principles. If you look at there's 10 of them. Number 9 and 10 we added as new guiding principles because it's something that we believe we talk about a lot in the school board. I'd also like to point out that in the policy, it's only requiring that the school board look at the district vision and mission. However, there was an existing school board mission and some guiding principles that were in the handbook, so I just put them together so you could look at them both. So we're bringing it to the board tonight just to get some initial feedback and whether there's any items that need to be revised. And if there is a lot of questions or we want to take a deeper dive, we can also defer this to the retreat. Yes, Ellen?
Just one, on page 2 at the very bottom, number 10, I believe there should be a capital B for board.
The board.
Yep.
And I really like number 11.
You would like a
I'd
number
like
11?
Number 11 on the top.
Up above.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to add a number 11.
Nope.
a lot of these were existing, so I think there was a lot of energy that went into these in the past. I will say, the vision for the district was much longer, and I really liked it. It said, you know, each of the students will be proud of their education, but it was really long and cumbersome, so we just boiled it down.
So does anybody have statements, questions? Do we want to? Shane? Oh, go
Just had
ahead,
a
Shane.
question. So we have the vision, looking at for the school district, we have the vision and the mission. Now, the guiding principles, would they just go along? Like, I know, like, most places will post their mission and vision somewhere. Would we not post the guiding principles just because that's very wordy? Or these more like, if you dive deeper into it, this is like the meat?
And I think the guiding principles were the beliefs, and they were in the handbooks.
Okay.
So there is another question, where should these go? The policy does not speak to that at all. It doesn't say they must be in the handbooks. It doesn't say that it must be anywhere. It just says that the board will revisit this annually and decide if you need to make any changes. So I think that's something that we can discuss as a board. The committee thought that it was probably more appropriate to put the vision, mission, and guiding principles. Well, wait a second, I take that back. We thought, we've taken them out of the handbooks. The handbooks have the school vision, mission, and that's it. We at C&E decided that we were going to just take them out for now because they were not consistent, and approve the handbooks. And then if we got these done ahead of time, we could choose to put it back into the handbooks. But the committee didn't feel like it was really necessary to have the handbook. That would just be too much more information than what parents and students might be looking at.
So
and perhaps we just put it on the website.
Yeah, and I do like how the vision and the mission are concise, because that's really what you want. And I think the guiding principles are important, but I'm also in the same breath thinking, well, where do they go? You know, they are certainly important.
Right.
I just don't know where they go.
And if it's on the website, then you know the space is free there.
Maybe that's an option. Yeah.
So I guess the question I have for the board right now is, does this look good, or do we need more discussion, or are we ready to approve it?
Anybody?
I'll move approval.
Jared?
I'm reading over the school board mission a few times, and my thought is I don't know. I'm trying to absorb that one little piece.
That's from your facial expressions. And you said that if we weren't ready, we could talk about it.
I think the rest of it is right, but I just keep rereading the section, and I'm like, I'm not sure if it's accurate of what we do right now, and not to say that that's not what we shouldn't do. I'm just trying to incorporate it with how we've worked over the past, number of years together and with the community. And, I know that we're a policy-making board. I think that we've really tried to empower our administrators appropriately, and I just want to make sure that the school board mission really reflects that. Because that's one thing that I always hear whenever we're going through any hiring process of a senior administrator. They always ask, well, how's the school board? And I want to be able to point to the mission, because we're always saying, we're more of a policy-making board, and we let the administrators implement it appropriately.
And it may make sense to have it at the retreat, because we'll also be talking about what our goals are for the upcoming year, and I think it would be appropriate for this to be part of the discussion, because as we move forward to the next year. And maybe we could consider adopting one, the school district, and we can save the school board mission vision for the retreat.
Yeah, I think that makes
suggest. If we look at adopting for the district, but then we can talk more about the retreat.
I mean, unless it's just me, if other people are kind of feeling maybe we need to hash that out. I'm okay if everybody else is okay with this. I don't have a passion about it. It's just one of those things I keep rereading, and I'm like,
Well, I think if we're going to be talking about our goals at the retreat, it makes sense we can talk about the mission at the same time. You know what I mean?
And we've really never looked at the school board. It's been out there.
Yeah.
But we've never looked at it, so I really think it's appropriate to hold off.
Okay.
And there's another B,
Another B where?
a first line of the school board mission. And I think there should be, and it says broad instead of board.
Oh, yeah. That's
And I think it should be apostrophe S, the board's educational goals.
Yep. So, is everybody good with the Goffstown School District vision and mission, or we can bring all of it to retreat? Because then, once we finalize this, we have to figure out where we're putting it, which may have to come back to policy. So do we want to do one motion tonight for the district, or just put everything off to the retreat in June?
Whatever you want.
I think we can do the district one now.
Okay, sounds good. All
And
right.
as we, in committee, we were talking about not putting it in the handbooks, because there's so much information in those handbooks, and
Right.
the schools' information, their vision and mission and everything is in there already.
Right.
So it seems like too much extra information,
Yeah.
and there's important information for people to absorb in those.
Right.
So we thought this is just extraneous, really, to the importance of that.
Exactly.
So if we put this on the website,
Mm-hmm.
it would still be very obvious to people,
Right.
but kind of in the right place.
Mhm.
And so that would be what I would propose,
Okay.
accepting this and putting it on the website.
Okay. All right, so why don't we do a motion for the Goffstown School District? Who
I'll
wants
second
to
it.
do that? Who's doing the motion?
I'll do the motion to accept the Goffstown School District mission, vision, and guiding principles as given on this paper, and to put them in the Goffstown School District website.
Okay. Does that work for you, Ben? Yeah. Okay. Do we have a second? By Alan? Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous, Denise. So then, the school board mission and vision will come to the retreat in June. All right, thank you, guys. That was, that's a lot that you guys have been doing. All right, staffing.
Okay, so everyone should have the staffing sheet in your packets. And for notifications, we have a track change. Congratulations to Emily App, moving from bachelor's to bachelor's 15. We have a couple of committee of assignment changes. And Mrs. Garrett, who is a wonderful teacher at Bartlett, is moving into the new interventionist position. She will be spectacular in that role. Jill Ryu will be moving from special education teacher into reading specialist, and Victoria Puglisi will be moving from special ed teacher to 6th grade teacher at Mountain View. And we have a leave of absence for Caitlin Allen. For your approvals, we have a leave of absence for Sarah Mullen, which will be through the remainder of this school year. And I'll stop and do these in chunks if that's
Yeah. All right.
agreeable.
So we'll need a motion to approve the leave of absence of Sarah Mullen.
So moved.
By Shane, do I have a second?
Second.
By Ginny. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, we have a few more resignations. We have a, this time, this is a for real
I was gonna ask, are you sure he's
retirement from Mr. Bousquet, who, in full disclosure, one of the nicest
He's wonderful.
human beings on the planet, in my opinion. But David will be retiring. He's been, since he retired from being the principal of Bartlett, he's been a part-time Title I teacher, and we've been glad to have him, and we will miss him dearly.
Yes.
Amy Pruitt, we will also miss. Amy is leaving the field of education, so I'm sorry for the loss. There are a lot of people that have decided that it's maybe time to take a shot at something different. Jennifer Rocheleau, school nurse, is leaving us for another school district. And Svea Shriver, I'm very proud of her. She has gotten an administrative job in another school district, and I think she will be spectacular in that role. So she's one of our shining stars, and I'm very happy for Sofia and wish her all the best.
Move to approve
The resignations.
teacher resignations.
Okay.
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
do you want to do that with Brett or?
Oh. Yeah, I can, yeah. Hate
Alright.
to see them go.
Yes, definitely. All right, so we have a motion from Ellen. Do I have a second? By Ginny. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
So continuing down, our administrators have been busy. They have been actively recruiting and hiring for vacancies that are currently known or anticipated. And this one is a big one for us. The board will recall that we had created an elementary curriculum coach, an instructional coach, and I'm exceptionally pleased to be nominating Athena Chisholm in that role. This will be a part-time position for Dr. Chisholm, and we couldn't possibly do any better, in my opinion. These other folks are unknown to me, with the exception of Cherise Salter as a school nurse here at the high school. Cherise was a nurse for us last year in New Boston, and she's spectacular. So I'm so glad that Cherise is rejoining us. And these other folks are new to us, but I will share with the board, this is something that we've talked about over the years. Several of these people have extensive experience, so we're hiring some very experienced teachers here, which is good. So, you can see here, not easy to find a biology teacher. So we're very pleased that we're able to fill some of these. And as the board knows, hiring is and will continue to be very challenging for us. So we're out there, we're working hard, and we will continue to do so.
All right, so I'll need a motion for the teacher nominations.
So moved.
By Shane. Do I have a second? Retta?
Sure.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, co-curricular
And
sports.
lastly, we've had a bit of a need to do some emergency kind of changes to our boys JV lacrosse program, where we had a coach unfortunately have to resign or leave us. So we have a nomination for Sean Hunter, who is a great former student, nice kid, great family. And Nick St. John will be also with him as a volunteer.
All right, so I'll need a motion for the co-curricular sport nominations.
So moved.
By Shane. Do I have a second? By Retta. Retta, second that, Denise. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Perfect. All right, so any other business that may legally come before the meeting? Oh, Jared.
Just in relation to staffing,
Yeah.
Brian, is there anything you can share in public about our retention for our teachers for next year? Is it still too early to talk about that, or?
Well, I think I can speak in generalities. So I think the board is aware, we have seen a lot of teachers resign. And I think that this is reflective of teachers that had planned to work a few more years. I think they have found themselves at a point where they've maybe made some major life decisions, and I think people are retiring earlier than they anticipated. So I think just at Mountain View, I think we had 9 people retire this year, and we're losing some exceptional teachers. So this is going to hurt. We're losing teachers that have an incredible amount of experience, institutional knowledge, and it's going to take us some time to rebound from that. So I think, unfortunately, the reality is we've seen a lot of people leaving the field of education. So I don't know that I can really read into it any more than that. A couple of these are, people that might be looking at a district that pays a little better than us, so, a little more money. But by and large, we've seen people retiring, I think, before they planned to.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Would you be sure to do exit interviews on the people
Absolutely.
that are retiring?
Yep.
And I would be interested to know whether they're leaving for more money, I know a lot of people are just retiring because, you know, I'll retire early. I really enjoyed it, but I'm going to retire early now. And then I would be interested in if people are uncomfortable with the status of different bills and stuff that are in the legislature in New Hampshire, if that's making teachers be a little bit uncomfortable with teaching in New Hampshire at this
I would tell you
point.
anecdotally, the answer to that is yes. In many ways, public education has never been under fire like it has been lately. So, for example, there are things such as the creation of an online petition that people can file to claim that teachers are teaching an inappropriate topic. To my knowledge, I believe I read in the newspaper last week that 0 in the entire state of New Hampshire had been properly found to be true. There was a bounty that was put by a private organization to identify teachers that are teaching critical race theory. There are a number of bills that are pending and going through the process that will make it considerably more challenging to teach about certain topics. And I would say that is a factor. I think it's a factor in general that public education does not get the respect that it deserves. And I hope that we continue to see, when I look at my distinguished colleague, Mr. Hagner, who I've had the good pleasure of knowing since he was in kindergarten, young people aren't going to be going into this. So I look at somebody like Caleb and other kids that are graduating and say, boy, I hope some of these kids want to go into teaching, because we're going to need smart, dedicated, talented individuals to replace all the people that we're losing, that are leaving the field.
But I really would like to have those kinds of things in writing as evidence that maybe we can put out there and say, you know, maybe these things are really making it hard for us to keep retention of our teachers. And, you know, maybe we could cool it a little bit.
Well, it's an interesting concept. I think at least some of the things that were legislatively done, I don't know that we're going to change anyone's thinking or ideology. And certainly, you know, the creation of the report a teacher, that came directly from the Department of Ed. But I will include, I will let Mrs. McGrath know. She does all of the exit interviews. I'll let her know and ask her to watch this and get that input. And she's pretty good about finding themes.
Yeah.
Kate is an exceptionally talented listener, so she'll hear and pick up the themes, but I'll ask her to specifically focus on those things.
And I mean, even if it doesn't do anything in Concord, I think it's fair to let the people of Goffstown know what's happening with teacher retention.
Yeah, and I think we also have to continue to be the cheerleaders for public education. So this is an incredibly honorable profession. You're able to have a considerable and profound impact in your local community. You're not going to get rich being a teacher, as everybody knows, and it's hard work, but it's rewarding, it's fulfilling. You can rest assured that your life's work has meaning in your community, and that means something to people. So hopefully it'll bounce back, because, you know, I look at what I perceive to be a massive deficit in the talent that we're losing, and the talent that's coming in is exceptionally concerning to me. And I think it's not just now, it's this year, it's next year, it's 5 years from now, it's 10 years from now. I don't see this as being temporary, at least right now. I hope that, you know, maybe with this could be, I don't want to jinx anything, but an economic downturn, like a recession, tends to push people back into roles like education that are maybe a little more perceived as being protected. But we're losing a lot of great people, and people that still have gas in the tank. That's the thing that's tough for me is, and I'm not going to name and pick people out, but you look at the teachers that we're losing that are retiring, you know, they're at an age where, yeah, they can retire, but they're also at an age that they were ready to keep going a couple more years. And I think the pandemic has really made people reassess. And so I'm happy for them, and I'm exceptionally sad for us, but I'm also grateful to keep people like Athena Chisholm. So there are some other people that I do hope to keep a couple of these folks in some part-time roles, because, boy, we're really going to need talent.
Go ahead, Rheta.
I just wanted to follow up because I was really impressed at the deliberative session where a number of teachers came in and spoke. And I think it was really great for the community to see that. I think if you have kids, you all know that there's certain teachers that do really well with your children. But the public otherwise may only see, like the football games or the theaters, and they don't necessarily get to see all the teachers. And I think the board's actually done really well the last couple of years in trying to show that support. I think those things may make a difference on people's decision either to come here or stay here. But I think your point is a good one, that we need to know that because, we know it's money, but it's also a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a good school district, but, what can we be doing into the future knowing this will continue?
And I also think it is more than money. Money's a piece of it, but money's not all of it. People who stay in jobs tend to stay because they have a higher job satisfaction. They tend to like their bosses, they like the organization, they like the culture. And, for the most part, money is a factor, but it's not the only factor. This is a proud organization. We've been doing this for a long time. We have a stable leadership team. We have a good supportive school board. This is a desirable place for people to work. The new contract makes us a little more competitive, so I think that will continue to be in our favor. And I'm really hoping, that we will be able to retain people and that we will be able to recruit people that want to be part of our organization. You look at how much leadership instability there is in the state right now. And I look at some of my colleagues that I know, and you're looking at school boards that are having decisions to hire a superintendent, a business administrator, a new high school principal, all at the same time. You think about these districts and say, boy, not only is that going to be nearly impossible for them, but to think about them making good, positive, forward growth during these years, it's hard. It's hard. In good school districts, it's everywhere. So we have a lot of stability, and that's another thing that I think is very desirable.
All right, Shane?
And I would just like to say to any of our teachers watching, we do have vacancies on this board for teacher reps. So
Yes.
3 of them.
we have 3
Three.
vacancies for
Three of them.
Right.
any of our teachers watching.
Please come.
3 vacancies.
Yep.
We'd love to have you. so.
Absolutely.
Come and let us know what
Thank
you need.
Shane. All right, so we do have non-public tonight. Just a reminder, Thursday night, 7 p.m., SAU board meeting. That's all of us at the SAU building. And then May 2nd, we are not having a school board meeting because we just get back from vacation. So the next school board meeting will be May 16th. So I'll need a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A32C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant.
So moved.
By Jared and Shane second.
Perfect.
All right, I gotta do roll call. Rheta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. So we are in non-public, so we pack up and we go into a
Yep,
conference
down to
room.
the lower